All right, Kyle Mohan Racing, and we're hanging out KMR shop, and we are doing a tech talk, not a TikTok, a tech talk, and we're going to be talking about the oil systems available for Mazda Rotaries, what system I am running on my Formula Drift RX-8, and which system I prefer, which is my opinion, out of the available systems. So you can see I've got a factory Mazda Speed dry sump system here on one side, and then this is just a case, both of these are cases, but just a case of what would be an aftermarket external mount dry sump pump. Both work. In fact, both work fantastic. You can look around the Mazda Rotary community worldwide, and if you need a race-ready oil system or something above and beyond the factory wet sump system, this is pretty much going to be your two options, and you can find these two options used around the world for many years. On the majority of my personal race cars, I have always gone with the factory Mazda Speed dry sump system. It is a little more expensive than running one of the aftermarket systems, but I think there are some bonuses to running the factory Mazda Speed system. We'll go over some of those bonuses. So the factory system is actually a replacement front cover for the Mazda Rotary engine. So you would remove your factory 13B or 20B front cover and actually replace it with this bolt-on unit. So factory parts replacement. The wet sump oil sump system would be removed, and the oil pump is actually built into the front cover. One of the other big bonuses to running a factory dry sump system is they are gear driven. They are not belt driven like one of the aftermarket external units. For me, I think this is a really big bonus. When I'm drifting or road racing, the last thing I really want as an engine builder or a driver is to be worried about potentially having a belt get thrown off or break. And if you think about it, if you lose oil pressure at any type of decent RPM under load, if that belt goes bye-bye, it could potentially be catastrophic engine failure. So the factory unit is a gear-driven unit running the pump on one gear and the main drive gear being on the eccentric shaft. So there's really no failure point to the factory dry sump pump unit. And that's really one of the biggest bonuses in my opinion. Volume-wise, both pumps will work fantastic on 13B, 3 rotors, 4 rotors. I think if you got beyond a 4 rotor, you may actually run out of volume. I know on some of our high-performance 3 rotor, 4 rotor builds, we have been able to max out the factory pump, but it has never led to any type of wear concerns or overall just maintenance concerns, I guess you would say. There's never been an issue with the volume it's been able to deliver, but I think if somebody was building a 6 rotor, you wouldn't be able to get away with this. You probably would have to actually run one of these external units, which you can continue, if you notice there's sandwich plates, to add on more chambers, giving yourself more pump capability. The factory unit is a 3-stage unit. You've basically got 3 stages of the pump functioning, and here in aftermarket system, this one's actually a 5-stage. So you can see volume-wise how you could potentially or actually get more volume if you need it out of one of those aftermarket pumps. So even though we've got such a fantastic dry sump pump available to us, we also have to have a fantastic oil. So we're running a 2050 made by Renewable Lubricants which is a Biosyn Extra motor oil, and it is actually a green motor oil. I think it's amazing. It was developed based on a government contract to create a high-performance lube that really wasn't using base crude oil, or, if you're thinking about it, foreign oil, or just oil for that matter. And obviously, whether it was, the Navy, whether it was the Department of Defense, NASA, which all had a little bit to do with this, they needed something that was high performance. So we didn't know it. It was news to me. But right here in the U.S., we have a environmentally responsible, high-performance, non-petroleum-based lube available, and it's actually fantastic. We ran it to 10,000 RPM in our 1,000-horsepower race cars over a year now, and it's actually proved to be more stable than previous petroleum oils we had run, meaning our viscosity with temperature change, heat change, has not led to pressure fluctuation really to the same degree that we have had in previous years. So I really thought that was fantastic, and just really goes along with, my feelings on dry sump pumps and just oil pump systems in general. You got to have a good oil pump, and you've got to have a good oil. A big concern with these factory units is they're actually no longer in production. So if you have one, you're fantastic. If you don't have one, it becomes a concern as to where to get one. There are a few companies manufacturing aftermarket versions of these factory units now, and occasionally these factory units do turn up new in Mazda Rotary shops, Mazda tricks, and sometimes even dealerships. So it's a matter of keeping an eye out for them. The general price range I see these factory units going for is about $5,000, give or take $1,000 in either direction. And if you're looking at one of the new billet ones that's an aftermarket reproduction of this that are very nice, I think you can find them for about $7,000 to $8,000. And there's manufacturers like Chips Rotary here in the USA making them, and there are a few manufacturers overseas also looking into them. So cost savings wise, your aftermarket belt driven pump is actually a lot cheaper. It doesn't bolt right on, so part of your expense in the aftermarket pump may be trying to mount this thing and creating your front pulley. You can see in our setup, we've actually got our alternator mounted on the side, and because in the US we drive on the left side of the car, our steering column's also over there. A lot of the aftermarket mounting setups that are available from Australia and other countries don't work based on the steering column setup. So maybe this is something we could look into creating a part for, but essentially you're on your own with mounting external dry sump pumps on rotary vehicles. With an external dry sump pump, you actually have to have some capacity in your dry sump or engine pan or engine plate, which is normal for piston cars, piston motors. But in the rotary world, if you're running a factory unit, you can actually run a completely flat plate across the bottom of the motor, because your pickups are actually internal and separate from the rest of the unit and do not interfere with any of the block or any of the drive gears that are in here, creating the opportunity for a rotary to be set very low in the chassis. And that's always become an advantage for rotary motors. If they're dry sumped, you're able to basically drop them right to their block and run a flat plate on the bottom. And not only does that get the center of gravity very low, as there is not any upper mass on rotaries, but it also allows you to get the motor placement very far back against the firewall. cars like the Mazda RX-8 from the factory actually claimed a mid-front engine layout, meaning their factory engine was behind the front axle line. I think that's interesting when you look into the literature of the car. If you were running one of these external units, which are cheaper, are readily available, so some great upsides, you actually have to have a little bit of capacity in the bottom of the pan, as these pickups will be going down underneath the motor and connecting like a piston dry sump setup would. So I think, there are some definitive advantages to running the factory unit. Flat plate bottom, inboard pump, everything is built into a bolt-on front cover, but availability is a problem. They're pricey, and when you really get down to it, depending on what you're trying to accomplish in your motor setup, the viability of running an external unit, like so many other racers do around the world, not only in the Rotary world, but in drag race and road race and tractor pull and so many things. So I think we're just lucky that in the Rotary world we've had such a unique unit that gives us such, in my opinion, an advantage when you talk about weight balance of the car, the fact that it's gear driven, all of these great things that make it very, very reliable and very usable. So very cool stuff. Some of the things we've done over the history of our car, we have experimented with different oils. My personal preference with most of my race builds is a 2050. I like to have a little bit of viscosity. Now, granted, we don't necessarily run in extremely excessive temperatures, usually nothing more than 100 degrees outside, and we definitely don't run in freezing. So these are race motors, and this is just my opinion, but I definitely have preferred 2050s throughout my Rotary driving career. And one of the newest oils that we're running within our cars is rather unique. It's actually a bio or green motor oil. Renewable lubricants. We ran them last year and we're very happy with the performance. Very stable viscosity through cold, through hot, through high RPM, through low RPM. And some things that I noticed on the data were that our oil pressures were very stable throughout these temperature swings. And something I always look out for, whether it's a top name brand or a small performance brand, I don't want a motor oil that's going to ester off or evaporate too quickly or aerate or foam. And whether it's a wet sump system or a dry sump system, you can have foaming or aeration issues. So making sure that you're running a performance oil that's up to the task, whatever your choice is very important. One of the reasons I liked renewable lubricants is their oil was actually based off of a government contract that was looking for a performance oil, something of high grade, that wasn't reliant on non-foreign oil, basically trying to become independent of our needs for foreign oil supply. And renewable lubricants was able to not only get up to that challenge, but that's really what gave birth to the performance oil that I'm running in my race cars now, which is a non-petroleum based oil that is available, publicly available in the US, made in the USA, and is considered an environmentally responsible lubrication. And you got to think about that. Something that's not relying on our normal oil. So I hope everybody enjoyed the Tech Talk, a little bit of my thoughts on these really cool oil pump systems that are available. What we're currently running in our car, which would be right here, a Mazda Speed dry sump front system, and we're running renewable lubricants 2050. So if anybody has any questions, definitely let us know. We're always trying to do our best, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, to answer the Rotary questions and put out more videos like this where we're giving up what I would say are not so secrets. Have a great night and follow Kyle Mohan Racing.